Shalom, welcome to the Jewish Task Force, JTF. I'm Chaim Ben Pesach. We have another program with the great David Ben Moshe. On this program, we're going to discuss Donald Trump's tariffs, what it means for the economy, and the wild swings in the stock market, and energy policy, what that can mean, and the fact that Trump is beginning negotiations with Iran on its nuclear program, and how Netanyahu never took advantage of Trump saying that he should get the Arabs out of Gaza. How this is something that could have happened, and Trump already has lost interest in it. We're going to try to go into all those subjects. I hope we can cover all those subjects. That's pretty ambitious. That's a lot of territory. Every subject is super important, but I don't know if time will permit us to go into all of those subjects. But we're going to try our best. But before we get to that, this program is dedicated to a refuah shlema, complete recovery, for David ben Edna, Ashedina bat Violet, Shlomo ben Sarah, Ruth bat Sarah, Dorit bat Sarah, Reuven ben Shoshana, and to Ilui Neshamot, elevating of the souls, for Sharon Mitman, Malka bat Meir, Allegra bat Shlomo, Daniel Neinkin, Victor Chazdai, Pesach Seb ben Dov, Lunita Adlo, Shifra Hoffman, Reuven Hoffman, Barry Hoffman, Rab Meir Kahana, Rab Benjamin Kahana, Tzipora Fegi bat Liba, Yosef ben Meir, Robert Mitman, Dana Shore, Helen Friedman, Charles Zolat, and Yair Levine. Well, Donald Trump said that he was going to impose massive tariffs on the overwhelming majority of highly populated countries in the world. 90% of the world's population was going to be under tariffs from the United States. And then he announced he's pausing it. As of the time we're doing this program, he announced he's pausing it on most countries, but he's increasing the tariffs on China. I'm not against the concept of tariffs if it's being used as a negotiating tool to force other countries to take down their tariffs on American goods, because the United States has been cheated by most countries of the world for many years now. That's true. They've taken advantage, and they've been able to steal huge segments of the American market. And of course, American manufacturing has been destroyed, has been decimated. And the United States has been taken advantage of. So if Trump uses tariffs in order to force negotiations and force concessions from other countries on the tariff issue, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the problem is, when you do it, you've got to have the guts to stick it out. What you shouldn't do is say, I'm imposing, I'm pausing, I'm imposing, and then it's starting again and not starting again, and all this instability. When you don't have a set policy and you go back and forth wildly, that can be very disruptive, as we see with the markets, with the stock markets around the world. But I'm not against the idea that the United States finally is going to get tough with these countries and crack down. The question is, who backs down first when you have a situation like this, if there's going to be backing down. Of course, you don't want a trade war. A trade war can lead to very, very serious economic consequences. So you don't want it to actually lead to a trade war, but you do want negotiations to get the tariffs removed. And if Trump succeeds in getting that, if he succeeds in getting tariffs drastically cut in most countries, that will be very beneficial to the U.S. economy, and it's something that should happen.
How about the American people? Do they have the stomach for a little fight? I don't think so. We're too fat, dumb, and happy. Emphasis on dumb.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say something now that's politically incorrect. Most Americans are schmucks, okay? Most Americans voted for Barack Hussein Obama. I'm sorry. You elected Bill Clinton as president. You elected Barack Hussein Obama as president twice. A black Muslim, Jew hater, racist, Farrakhan supporter. You put him in the White House twice for 8 years. You elected the late Joe Biden to the presidency. I mean, the things that you've done have proven that the majority of Americans are stupid. I'm sorry, just damn stupid. And so, nothing else I can say about that. So Trump is working with a people that doesn't have the temerity and the courage and the intelligence and the backbone to do the things that have to be done. I will say one thing about Donald Trump, and you know that we've criticized certain aspects of what he does, because we're not Trumpies on this program, we're not Trumpsters, but we supported him because he's better than the Democrats. And I will say something. I will say one thing in his favor: he's not a coward. Okay, almost all the American presidents before him in recent history are all cowards. The Bushes certainly are cowards. Barack Hussein Osama and Bill Clinton and all the others, the cowardice is beyond belief. Now, with Obama, he deliberately wanted to do damage. He hates the United States. He's a Muslim. He's a Muslim racist and anti-Semite and Farrakhan supporter. He hates the United States. And so, but still, even the presidents who are Republican, they're all cowards. They're all part of the Republican establishment. Trump is not a coward. Okay, sometimes he does gutsy things. He takes steps that other presidents say, "Oh, I can't do that." Why not? So Trump is not Trump, at least in domestic issues and certain steps that he's taken in all areas of policy, has not been a coward. I hope he's not going to be a coward in regard to Iran, because when it comes to Iran, he has been cowardly when it comes to Iran. Okay, Iran, the problem of Iran should have been solved in his first term. And not only didn't he solve it, he pressured Israel not to strike. And of course, the Israeli leaders are cowards. So the whole issue of Iran is an example of cowardice, is a lesson in cowardice, the dangers of cowardice. But on other issues like his Gaza plan to get the Arabs out and other issues, sometimes he can go beyond what the wimpy presidents we had in the past were willing to do. So, I'll give him credit for that. Now, he has said that tariffs can give the United States a lot of extra revenue. I hope that doesn't mean that he wants a permanent situation of tariff wars so that we can get extra revenue from other countries through the tariffs, because that would be a very foolish policy. That would be foolish, because whatever revenue the United States gets from the tariffs, the United States economy will be severely impacted in a negative way. The United States still has a dominant position in the world economy. And the United States and China are the two dominant economies in the world today. And if you have tariffs and if you build if you have tariff wars and you build barriers to trade, the United States will lose a lot of its dominance in the world economy. And that is not to the benefit of the United States economy, of the American people. But again, if you're using it as a negotiating tactic to force other countries to bring down their unfair tariffs, which they have imposed on America for many, many decades now, if you're doing that, then I'm all for what Trump is doing. Then he's doing the right thing. That you should do. And by the way, his tariffs on China, that is justified. China is an enemy of the United States. China is committed to destroying the United States and to becoming the premier world power, to replacing the United States as the premier world power. China is a dangerous enemy, and American dependence on China is very bad for the American economy. And Trump imposing tariffs and going to war with them to try to bring down their tariffs, that I think is justified. That I think is a good thing. So again, on this particular issue, I'm going to assume that Trump is doing the right thing. I'm going to assume that he's going to do the right thing. I hope he makes the right decisions, because again, this is risky policy. It's policy which you see with the markets, how they react. Trillions of dollars were lost, and now the day we're doing this, the market is way up again. You see that this is something that very quickly affects the economy and has a major impact on the economy. So I hope he handles it right. And I hope he handles it, with an intelligent, coordinated policy. So far, I'm gonna say that so far, with a certain amount of concern, so far, I think what he's doing should be supported. So far, I think what he's doing is in the right in the right direction so far. Okay, now, as far as bringing more money into the United States Treasury and dealing with American debt, because I don't think that what Elon Musk is doing is going to make a significant dent in the debt. It's not. It's not going to make a big dent in the massive debt that America has, or in the massive budget deficits that America has. I don't think it's going to make a big. I don't think it's going to make a big difference. I don't think it's going to substantially change a very, very dangerous situation where the United States is going deeper and deeper and deeper into debt. There is one thing though that could add a lot of revenue to the American economy, and that is energy. And we've spoken about this before. But if you want literally trillions of dollars, a trillion is 1,000 billions, and a billion is 1,000 millions. Okay, so let's put our thinking caps on. I know affirmative action people, you can tune out on this. I know that you don't know the difference between trillion and million, and trillions, a trillion, and million, and billion. I know you don't know the difference, so I'm not even gonna, I don't. You don't have to worry about any of this because you have no concept. I'm tempted to go into stories of the. There's so many things that I've seen from affirmative action people in the past few years that I could give you so many stories as I used to do on Ask JTF, but I'm not going to do that because we're politically correct now, and because we know that we're under censorship here. So I'm not going to do it, even though I'm tempted to do it. I'm going to do it. But anyway, we could get trillions of dollars, literally trillions, in new revenue um, from energy. Trump is undoing a lot of the bad things that the late Joe Biden and other administrations did in the past on energy. He's undoing a lot of it because if you just get government out of the way, I mean, really get government completely out of the way and let the United States drill and get shale oil and get and frack and do coal and do all the other energy projects that have to be done. And electric cars. And electric cars. Okay? Because the Chinese are taking over that market right now. The Chinese are moving very quickly. The United States should better become competitive in that market, or the United States economy is going to suffer. If you do all of these things and get America moving and make America the energy powerhouse of the world, that will give America global dominance. That will defeat China. That will really defeat China in trade and defeat all of America's enemies in trade. People say adversaries. They don't want to say enemy. Adversary sounds more, they're enemies. They're evil enemies. The United States should defeat them. And to defeat them in trade, if you had an energy policy which sought to make America the dominant energy force in the world, in other words, complete American energy independence, the United States doesn't need a single drop of foreign oil or natural gas or anything else in terms of energy from foreign countries. And the United States becomes the world's #1 energy exporter and completely takes over and dominates and puts OPEC and all these other evil anti-American forces. OPEC is an anti-American force also. Puts them out of business. By the way, Saudi Arabia is an enemy of the United States. The Muslim countries are enemies of the United States. America has no Muslim allies or Arab allies. Baloney. They all hate they all hate and envy America and would love to destroy the United States and do everything they can to undermine the United States. But let's say that America cuts the Saudis the millions of barrels of oil every day that they're selling. They're unable to do that anymore. And the Iranians are unable to do it, and all these other Muslim countries. You know what that would do for the security of the world? You know what that would do for the safety of the world, for the world economy? You have any idea what that would do? The impact would be overwhelming. And not only that, America would generate so much new revenue. It would be unbelievable what could take place. Just imagine if energy prices in the United States began to go down, let's say energy was costing one third or one half of what it costs now. Do you know what type of effect that would have on the American economy? On Western economies in general? You have any idea? And countries like Russia, okay, they're concerned about Russia threatening Europe now. Countries like Russia, you know how devastating that would be to Russia? Russia is absolutely dependent on energy exports, natural gas and energy exports from Siberia. They are dependent on that. That's their only hope for survival. That's their ticket to survive. If they didn't have that, and China, by the way, has to import its energy. What would happen if China? What would happen if China's in a situation where the United States is the dominant energy force in the world? Very, very rough on China. That would really, really be a blow to the Chinese enemies of the United States. So that's what should be happening now. Just get the government out of the way. Ronald Reagan, when he was inaugurated on January 20th, 1981, said in his inauguration speech, the best line and the most important line in his speech was, government is not the solution to the problems. Government is the problem. That was, I think that's almost what he said, word for word. But that was the most important line in his inauguration speech. That's the truth. Government is not a solution. Government is the problem. If the government would allow, can you imagine if the government would allow drilling all over the place and the drilling off coasts and drilling, and there was fracking everywhere, and with America's, do you have any idea how much energy power this country has been given? Natural energy power that's below ground, that's below the water, that's below. The United States has enough energy to provide to be the energy provider for the whole world. That's no exaggeration. The United States has enough energy to do that. And and then people said, well, eventually you're going to run out. I don't know. They've been saying you're going to run out forever. They've been saying that. Okay, so I'm very skeptical about that. And even if eventually America starts running out of certain types of energy, by then, which would be decades from now, the technology will be developed for new sources of energy where you don't need to do the things that we do now to extract energy. You won't need to, because there are going to be new sources of energy. There are going to be new ways to produce energy. Technology will do this. And if the United States is the technological leader and the exporter and the country getting all the money and all the revenue, wow, that would be incredible. And not only that, when the United States imports energy, you only have a handful of big corporations like ExxonMobil and these giant corporations, or even foreign corporations like British Petroleum. These handful of corporations monopolize the market. And so it does not benefit the U.S. economy. It cripples the economy, because huge amounts of money come in for these oil billionaires, these oil tycoons, and everybody else gets squeezed with high oil prices and pays the high oil prices, and they make deals. They cut deals with these Muslim dictators. The Muslim dictators make gigantic profits, and the oil tycoons and the oil companies make gigantic profits, and the American people, American consumers, and consumers all over the world get screwed. And the economies of countries are destroyed. That is what happens now. And that's what so-called environmental policies do, and other policies that impede energy independence and energy exploration and energy development. That's what happens. But if you had all this energy being drilled, you had all the drilling and fracking and discoveries and all these other things happening in America with no government interference. If you had that going on in the United States, first of all, it would be environmentally better for the United States, because here, at least, there are some controls and some way of reviewing what's going on. But more importantly, You'd have thousands of entrepreneurs and up and coming companies because you can't monopolize. If it's in America, if everything's taking place in America, it's very hard to monopolize the market. You're going to have middle-sized and small business entrepreneurs that are going to get in on the action. And so thousands of companies and entrepreneurs will start developing. And that'll create whole new technologies and new ideas and new innovations, and the effect on the American economy will be overwhelming. That's the way to go. Trump has eliminated some of these barriers that Biden put in place, but not enough. All of them have to go. There has to be a crash emergency program to get America to become the energy giant of the world, to become the energy exporter of the world, to put America's enemies out of business in terms of the oil market. That should be that should be the number one emphasis, the number one domestic policy. Of course, securing the border is very important, and all these other issues, that's all very important as well. But economic domestic policy, it should be unleashing America's energy potential. Imagine a world where the Muslim countries are not going to have trillions of dollars in revenue anymore, and where they're going to actually have to control their population because they're going to be starving. They're literally going to be starving, and they won't be able to do anything about it. They won't be able to. You think they'll be able to pursue nuclear weapons? It costs tens of billions of dollars to have nuclear weapons programs. You think that, what if they don't have tens of billions of dollars? What if they don't have enough money for anything? That would be a good situation for the world.
They'd wither on the vine.
It would be the best possible scenario. America can do that. And Trump is bold and takes bold action in certain areas. He's not taking bold action in this area because he's too dumb to understand what I'm talking about right now. I'm sorry to say that, but he's no genius. Okay, he's not. He called himself a stable genius. He's not stable, and he's not a genius. Okay, but he has guts. So if he only understood what he could do for the future of the country. I know that he signed executive orders undoing a lot of what Biden did. That's all good. That's all we 100% support 100% what he's done in energy so far. But he's got to do much more. He's got to have a crash program to go through every element of government bureaucracy and every element of government obstacles in this area and get rid of all of them. That would be much more important even than what he's doing with the tariffs. And by the way, that would help the markets. That would strengthen the stock market, and the stock market's not going to go down if he's pursuing a good energy policy. The opposite is true. The stock market is going to go way up. That would be the most beneficial thing he could do. And that will also, he's worried about the trade deficits and the trade imbalance because the United States takes in much more than the United States exports. So he doesn't like the fact that we have trade imbalances and trade deficits, and he's right. If America became the world's number one energy exporter, that would solve that problem. America would be the country with trade surpluses, and America would be getting all the money.
How do you get to that oil? Because you're going to have environmentalists filing lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. Somehow you got to be able to stop that so you can proceed and do what must be done.
I think if Trump had an emergency all-out program that was well coordinated, it could be done. I think he could get it done. He's having challenges at the border, but he has succeeded in at least in getting certain control at the border now. There's much less illegal immigration now. Still, I don't think he's going far enough, but you know what I would like to do. But you can do, there's a lot of things you can do if you have an all-out emergency coordinated program. And I don't think it'll go all the way up to the Supreme Court. You think the Supreme Court is going to block Trump from trying to get drilling and trying to get fracking and trying to get all these other things in all these other places? He should be forcing states like New York that refuse to do fracking. He should be forcing them to do it. He should say, this is a national emergency, you're going to do it. You're not going to let that evil filthy sludge governor, that filthy pig governor that we have in New York, Hutchell, that dirty dog. He's not going to allow her to stand in the way of fracking or the other left-wing politicians.
Letitia James, she'll file lawsuit after lawsuit.
Okay, but the Supreme Court, we've seen that the Supreme Court often rules in Trump's favor, the Supreme Court now.
Yeah.
So I think he prevail on that. And I also think, by the way, that if the courts, he's ignoring certain court orders. Judges are saying, you're ignoring my order. You're not, screw them. You should ignore their orders. And the courts have no right to intervene where they're intervening against Trump, like on deportation. Trump should say, screw you. You're not going to tell me what to do. But anyway, the way he's ignoring certain court orders and the bureaucracy is continuing to do what they want to do anyway, and judges say, I'll hold you in contempt. What are you doing? Okay. Trump doesn't care about that. He doesn't panic like all of these other presidents who every time a judge says something, they make in their pants. I mean, Trump doesn't, Trump at least has the guts to continue to pursue and continue to fight. He should do that on energy. And again, it can be done. Now, Iran. Trump announced that on Saturday there's going to be negotiations between the United States and Iran. Big mistake. There shouldn't be any negotiation. There's nothing to negotiate. The United States should bomb and destroy Iran's nuclear bomb-making program, and that's it. And by the way, there are underground facilities in the mountains that America does not have the bombs to go through whole mountains, because what they did is they built under the mountain. America can't. America's going to have bombs that are going to be big enough to destroy a whole mountain. No, America does not have that capability in terms of conventional weaponry, at least. And so what you have to do is you have to go to these nuclear facilities that are underground. You send in the Marines and send in U.S. forces, and you got to go in and on the ground. You land people on the ground and go in, and they have to break through and get in there and blow it up and set explosives and blow it up after you've gone in. You've got to go inside. That's what's got to be done if you really want to destroy Iran's nuclear bomb-making program. The United States can do that. The United States also can destroy Iran's electric grill. In 1 hour, the United States can put Iran in the dark, can destroy Iran's electric grill completely. Very primitive electric grill. And they're having tremendous... What?
Electric grid.
Grid. Why am I saying grill?
Grill.
Okay.
I know you weren't thinking about barbecuing a steak.
No, I don't eat steak, but because for health reasons, I don't. I don't. Almost never. Very rare. Do I eat steak? Very rare. But anyway, grid, electric grid. Thank you. In 1 hour, U.S. fighter bombers can destroy from the air Iran's electric grid, and can also destroy in several hours, at the most in several hours, maybe less, Iran's energy program, where almost all their revenue, now over 90% of their revenue comes from oil, from oil exports. The United States just can bomb their oil fields, bomb bomb everything they use everything they use to export the oil, and destroy the harbors and destroy. America can put them out of business very quickly. Very quickly. Shut down the Iranian economy, shut down Iran, and make it all dark in Iran. They have no electric. By the way, even now, I don't know if you know this, but Iran has massive blackouts all the time. They're having tremendous, even though they're an energy producer, they're so primitive and stupid that they're having massive blackouts for long periods of time. And
it's because Islam renders you a functional idiot.
They have a culture they have a culture that comes from that comes from the influence of the Quran and the Hadith and all these other influences that makes them primitive, that creates a primitive society. I mean, the ancient Persians were were at one time the world's most advanced people. They had the most advanced empire in the world, the ancient Persians. They ruled over almost the entire world. We celebrated Purim a few weeks ago. Purim was a holiday where we say where Persia, ancient Persia, was ruling over 127 different countries. 127 countries they ruled over. Massive empire, extending all through Asia and up to India, and then through parts of and then North Africa and parts of Europe. Massive empire the ancient Persians had. Excuse me. And now look at them. They can't even keep the lights on, and they have massive energy production, and they can't keep the lights on. So you can completely close down their economy and completely close down their electricity and completely close down all their energy sources and all their revenue sources. How long will the Ayatollahs stay in power if you do that? And of course, bomb and destroy from the air everything you can destroy from the air in terms of their nuclear program, in terms of their weapons development. And if you have to go underground, if you have to send the Marines to go, and believe me, the Iranians are no match for the U.S. Marines. Trust me, the Marines could easily handle it. If they have to go in and break in to the underground facilities in order to put explosives there, set explosives, come out and blow the place up, you can do that too. So that's what you need to do with Iran. You need now to militarily destroy Iran's nuclear bomb making capability, not engage in negotiations. And I hope that Trump will do that. I hope that that's what that will lead to. Well, as I predicted, we're not, I'll just very quickly say with the last subject I wanted to mention, Gaza, I predicted that we weren't going to be able to cover everything I wanted to cover. But Gaza, Trump told Netanyahu, first of all, I give you the green light. He said that if they don't release the hostages, the gates of hell will open. Did Netanyahu open the gates of hell? He opened the gates of hell for the Jews, not for the Arabs, Netanyahu. In Gaza, Trump said that he thinks that the Arabs should be moved out of Gaza. He gave Netanyahu a green light to do whatever Netanyahu wants to do. He could have expelled all the Arabs, thrown them all out of Gaza. What a great example that would be. What a great example that would set. Imagine throwing all and would make Israel a lot safer. All the Arabs out, forced out. Put them on ships, put them on planes, put them wherever, send them to Africa, send them wherever, but get them out. And by the way, most of them would gladly leave because Gaza is really a nightmare right now. Most of them would gladly leave.
I would put them in the middle of the Mediterranean.
Anyway, Netanyahu is certainly not going to do that, but even though anyway, Netanyahu, he's such a coward and such a traitor. He doesn't want to. He didn't take advantage and didn't do anything in this area. Nothing. Didn't do anything in this area. If anything, he was continuing to give them so-called humanitarian aid. Do you know that he gave them tens of thousands of tons of so-called humanitarian aid to the Hamas terrorists? This is how you wage a war? There is only one place in Israel where large numbers of Arabs are leaving. Not enough. There are millions of Arabs in Israel, but tens of thousands are leaving. And that's in Judea and Samaria and the Hilltop youth, not the Israeli army. The Hilltop youth who get a large part of their budget from JTF. They're the ones who are creating a situation where the Arabs want to leave because just because they're grazing on the land and living there and not letting the Arabs take over everything. That is causing tens of thousands of Arabs to leave. By the way, there are many stories on Al Jazeera and Al Arabiya and all of the Arab media about how the Hilltop youth are causing tens of thousands of Arabs to abandon entire villages in Judea and Samaria because of the Hilltop youth. Don't you want to support these Jewish heroes? Don't you want to support the only force in Israel that is winning for a change, that is doing the right thing for the Jews and setting the example for the Jews that all the Jews should be doing, that all of Israel should be doing? Don't you want to support them while they're doing this important, vital work for Israel's survival? Here's your chance to help the heroic Hilltop youth. First of all, you should include JTF in your will, set aside money in your will, or maybe all of you, maybe everything if you can. Leave money to the Hilltop youth. There's no cause more worthy. Leave money to JTF in your will for the Hilltop youth, and it will go to the Hilltop youth, of course. And you can go online you go online, you go to our Hebrew main page, which is hayamin.org. And on hayamin.org, you click on the donate button. There's a big donate button in English on top. And you can do one of two things. You can you can do both of them. You can make recurring monthly donations. You just click on an amount and your credit card will make the monthly donations to JTF, something everybody should do, very much recommended. Or you can make one-time donation or you can make a one-time donation, which is also very important. Very easy to do, very convenient to do. Recurring monthly donations and one-time donations. Go to hayamin.org and do it as soon as you finish with this program. Very, very important. This is the ultimate cause that you want to support. That's if you want to do it online. If you want to do it through the regular mail, you just make checks and money orders made out to JTF and you send it to JTF PO Box 650327, Fresh Meadows, New York 11365. David?
We were talking about Islam in Iran. Here is a picture of a woman. Her religion is, she's a Zoroastrian. If you don't know what a Zoroastrian is, it's not the worship of Zorro. It's the ancient Persian religion.
Zoroastrian, yeah. I think it's pronounced Zoroastrian in English, I think. Okay.
But she says, because she practices this ancient faith in a Muslim country, she says you never know the depths of Islam's barbarity until you're a Muslim woman living in a Muslim country. As long as we're talking about Muslims, that's not Iran. That's not Saudi Arabia or Iraq. It's not Jordan. That's Sugarland, Texas. As they kneel to pray, what are they doing in this country? What traitors, and I'm literal traitors, brought these savages in here? You remember the Fort Hood shooting? Here they thought this guy was a viable psychiatrist and a good soldier, and instead he kills 8 people at Fort Hood. I didn't want to start the show with Islam. I wanted to start it with America, but okay, because you were talking about Islam in Iran. And here's something. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro gives $5 million in a grant to a mosque that says Jews are called the most vilest of people on the planet. And Josh Shapiro, who is a leading candidate to run for president in 2028 on the communist ticket, he gives Muslims $5 billion. When you give them, they'll take it and they'll hate you even more because they're jealous of the fact you have that money, and you look down on them so that you feel you have to award them that money. Not billion, million. I meant million, 5 million.
By the way, they say when the Jews, for instance, give them things and do things for them, you know what they say? They say, Allah made our enemies crazy. Look, Allah gets our enemies to help us before we slaughter them. Look at what Allah has done. This is what they say. This is what they write in their, this is what they say on their television, their media, their internet. This is what they say in Arabic.
And it's true. You have to be crazy to give them money. First of all, they're loaded with oil wealth. And then you want to give them money on top of it. Let them take it from the oil money. And you talked about if we take all that oil production away from them, how poor they'll be. The suckers in the West will make donations to make sure they're still viable countries.
Now, it won't be, still won't be enough, but all right. By the way, their countries are bottomless pits. Doesn't matter how much money you give, like Egypt. Egypt is a bottomless pit. You can give them billions and billions, just hopeless. Just rot from beginning to end, and corruption and rot and just a nightmare, just a nightmare.
And I mentioned China. Well, one thing China is doing right, which you might say the West should be doing too. Actually, the West should be leading the way. China is destroying every mosque in their country and calling Islam a mental illness. Now back to America. Has anybody noticed, this is irrelevant to anything, but where's Ronald McDonald? I haven't seen him in a commercial for decades. What happened to Ronald McDonald? And Schmuck Schumer makes $193,400 a year. He's worth $85 million. I would like someone to give me, it doesn't have to be specific details, and not just say he's corrupt, because they're all corrupt, and that's very general. I want to know how he gets $85 million from a salary less than $200,000 a year. Like how much is insider trading? How much are kickbacks from Porky gave to friends who then kick back money under the table? And it's not just him, it's pervasive in Congress. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said she didn't have enough money to last till her first congressional paycheck. Now she's worth, I've heard 14 million for quite a while, but now I'm starting to hear 30 million. How do you get that on a salary of 175,000 a year? Schumer's salary may be a little higher because he's the Senate minority leader, and for a while he was the Senate majority leader. So I would like some specific, not exact specifics, but in the general direction. Where is all this money they're getting rich on coming from?
It's coming from the American taxpayers.
Well, of course, but how? I'd like to know how. Inquiring minds want to know. And then we had this. I'm not going to say a word about who did what to who. Who?
Talk about Texas?
No. Is this Texas? I don't know where this was. This might have been Texas. But one guy's an athlete.
Yeah,
he's
Texas.
A track star.
Texas.
And he's looking at a football scholarship. And the other one's I'll just call him a ne'er-do-well. And yet the ne'er-do-well stuck a knife in the heart of the athlete. And the athlete has a twin brother, but because they're twins doesn't mean they're equal in ability. So I don't know if the twin brother is also looking at scholarships, but I'll just leave it to your imagination. Which one do you think knifed the other one?
And by the way, what happened there was the athlete asked this creature, well, he asked him, "What are you doing here?" Because he came in, he wasn't supposed to be there. And because he asked him that question, or he asked him that question, because he asked him that question, this creature took out the knife and stabbed him in the heart. And his twin brother was there, and he died in his twin brother's arms.
Yes.
And he said he saw him. Just first he saw him fall on the ground, and twin brother grabbed him and held him in his arms during the last moments before he died. And his twin brother and the father said, the twin brother said, I saw his soul, I saw he lost his soul, and when he lost his soul, I also lost my soul. And the father also. Now, the father of the athlete said that he's forgiving. He wants to forgive, and he wants to, he wants to pray for these people. And he says 2 families were destroyed. Oh, please. That I don't understand. I mean, I feel sorry for the father. I feel sorry for the family, but come on. Come on. Enough with this. Evil is evil. You can't have any pity on people. People who are merciless deserve no mercy. People who are cruel beasts should be treated with cruelty. They deserve to be treated with cruelty. And now this creature who committed the murder is being turned into a hero. I don't know if you know this. Black Lives
Yes,
Matter
and
and the other
he
groups are
has a GoFundMe account.
raising hundreds of thousands of dollars now for him. He's become a hero now. So, I mean, this is what this country has turned into. Instead of raising money for the poor family whose son was butchered like this for no reason, his son was 17 years old. His son was 17 years old, and just stabbed in the heart and murdered for no reason. And this creature, this beast, is the one that they're raising money for. He's the one that gets all the sympathy and all the support.
It's like George Floyd all over again. In Houston, a councilwoman, Jewish councilwoman, Peck, is being harassed and threatened. And every time she comes out, they surround her car, banging on it. They call her by her first name. They call her children. They know her children. They know her address. So that she said, this is not free speech. This is harassment. She said, but she has nothing against your free speech of where she stands. Being she's Jewish, they automatically associate her with being pro-Israel. But after listening to what she said, it wouldn't surprise me if she was more pro-PLO than pro-Israel or pro-Hamas. She said, Houston, and it was never like this before, but it is now. She said, this is not free speech, it's harassment. And she said, in Houston, we allow all the free speech because we believe in free speech. And we allow you to do anything you want. And we forgive you for doing this.
No.
And I'm missing the most important part. Oh, she said, and in Houston, we believe in inclusivity. So we want you here, but limit your free speech. Remove the harassment.
I'm glad that you want to know something. She's worse than them. She's worse than them.
Meanwhile, the guy that plunged a knife into the Texas Star, some of his cousins started a mini riot in Disneyland. What is there to fight over in Disneyland? You remember Walt Disney called it this happy place? And instead there was fighting. Guys were punching women. And the women didn't have enough. They went and harassed the guys again, and the guys punched the women. Guys were punching each other. And there was a mini riot, same thing, at McDonald's. What are they fighting over? One of their horrible hamburgers or their French fries? Or maybe they were arguing over Pepsi versus Coke.
They were arguing over DEI.
An illegal immigrant his first name is Martinez, last name Hernandez, from El Salvador.
His first name is Martinez? That's usually a last name.
Martinez Hernandez.
Okay. That's usually a last name, but okay.
I know. Who killed before, raped and murdered Rachel Morin while she was jogging. This is our illegal immigration policy. Thank you, Joe Biden, for this. If I was the family of Rachel Morin, I would sue the government. But of course, it takes money, and the government has endless resources. But maybe you can find a lawyer who would do it, because he believes that our border shouldn't be open and we shouldn't be bringing the third world in, even legally. Maybe you could find a lawyer who would take the case and try suing the government.
You can't sue the government.
I know you can't.
You can't sue the government over
But
that. Not over that.
somebody
If
should set
if
up.
you're black and anything that you don't, the slightest thing that you don't like happens to you in New York City or any other city, then you can sue and get millions of dollars. But if something like this happens to you, if you're murdered by an illegal alien, then you're not allowed to sue the government. That, that's not allowed. No, that we can't have. No.
And then in Portland, where they're harvesting illegal aliens and they decriminalize most crime, stores are starting to leave in droves. The value of properties are plummeting, and the city leaders are in a panic. So we'll have to watch where this goes.
By the way, on the subway and the buses in New York, half the people don't pay their fare. Now, they just go through. Even on the buses, I see all these kids going through. Whenever I have to take a bus, they just go right past. They don't pay the fare. They just ignore it. I mean, it says fare required, big signs now to try to encourage. And then they have signs saying, when you help us ride, it helps the subway system if are encouraging people to pay their fares. Yeah, you're appealing to their good instincts. Oh, yeah.
Meanwhile, they're going to raise the rates to make up for that lost revenue, and the people that do pay are going to end up paying more.
They are soaking the people of New York. I hate New York. I hate New York. And they are soaking the people of the city and the state. It's not just the rates, because the rates do not bring in enough revenue to operate the transit system. Taxpayers have to bail them out over and over again, with billions of dollars in bailouts. And so New Yorkers pay the highest taxes in the country. They pay the highest taxes and have the worst government and the worst services in the country and pay the highest taxes. The People's Republic of New York.
And then just a little south New York, we have Cory Booker and his 24-hour filibuster that broke all filibuster records. And because he talked for over 24 hours and said absolutely nothing, he's now a leading Democrat candidate in 2028 and a leading person to become a leader in the Democrat Party. And just to show you the insanity isn't just in America. In England, as I mentioned last week, most major cities have a Muslim mayor. The majority of MPs, that's the House of Commons, are now Muslim.
Where? No, not in the whole country.
Yeah.
No.
It said the majority of MPs.
In the British Parliament?
Yeah.
No, majority of MPs are not Muslim. That's not true. That's not accurate.
Well, that was a story I read.
It's not. Trust me, that's not accurate. It hasn't reached that point yet. I mean, it's not. It has not yet reached that point in England yet. No, the mayor of London is a Muslim.
The mayor of Birmingham, the mayor of Leeds.
Yeah, no, you have Muslim mayors and you do have Muslim MPs, but the majority of MPs are not Muslims. That would then England would already have Sharia law if that was true.
Well, that guy Chowdhury, I don't know if he's an imam or a mullah or he's just an evil man. He said all of England will be under Islam and you will do what we say or you will be put to death. But if you do what we say, you'll be allowed to live because Allah is merciful.
Mm-hmm.
And the streets are filled with Muslims. Meanwhile, white males, there's a proposal, are going to be suffering harsher punishments if they break the law.
They already are. They already talking about the whole.
Is that Sharia law?
I had to go. That I travel around and I try to raise money for the Hilltop youth and I do all types of things and even in the freezing and it's freezing this winter in New York. New York has terrible climate. Oh, how I wish I could make Aliyah if they'd let me make Aliyah already to Israel, the beautiful climate in Israel. But anyway, in New York, freezing, horrible weather. So I I was freezing. I was waiting for the bus and waiting for the bus, and I'm freezing. So I had to go, and I drink a lot of water during the day and I eat fruits and vegetables. So because of that, I have to use the bathroom frequently. Okay, that's just something that when you drink a lot of water and you eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, you got to use the bathroom, especially when you're my age, 68 years old. So I was near Queens College, and you know the area, right? Queens College, the neighborhood. You remember the?
Sure.
Okay.
So
So
many
I
of my
was
friends went
I was
there.
near Queens College. So I said, you know what? Let me use the bathroom, let me use the men's room in Queens College. So I go to Queens College. I go on the campus, and I see loads and loads. I pass lots of students there. There were lots of students. There was not one. There was not one white student. All the way from walking there, all the way in the campus, a pretty long campus. I must have passed like 200 students. I'm telling you, there was not one white student there when I went there. Not one. And this is all subsidized by the taxpayers. I mean, this is blatant discrimination. The majority, by the way, the majority, all right, New York City is maybe 1/3 white now. But New York State is still majority white. The state of New York still has majority white population, the overall state. And yet you go through the college system. All all the scholarships, all the programs, everything else goes only to everybody else. We have apartheid. The United States is a nation of racial apartheid against whites and certainly against Jews and against Asians. There were Asians. There were Asian students there. Even they're in the minority there. But whites, and by the way, I hardly heard any English. I guess they have very vigorous language programs in Queens College where I guess they're practicing their different languages because I didn't hear any English on going past all these students. I hardly heard a word of English. This is Queens College. You know how much money is spent subsidizing these universities? Another thing Trump is doing that I want to applaud. He wants to take $400 million away from taxpayer money to Columbia University, Nazi Columbia University, and the Nazis in Harvard and Yale and all these other, and Cornell. He wants to take $1 billion. Cornell gets $1 billion. $1 billion from the taxpayers every year for one of its $1 billion for one university?
A private university.
I mean, this is unbelievable for a university that teaches, by the way, Jew hatred, America hatred, white hatred, racism. I mean, this is where billions of your tax dollars are going. And Trump, he's using the excuse of anti-Semitism to try to cut these programs. He shouldn't have used it. You know what? Screw him. Just don't give him the money at all. You don't have to use anti-Semitism or not. And they are anti-Semitic. But I mean, anti-Semitism or not, why are the taxpayers funding this crap? I have to pay for their crap, for their so-called education, for their affirmative action, DEI education. I have to pay for this?
Norway has thousands of Muslims in their street. Lisbon has thousands of Muslims in their streets. But in Iraq, Christians held a rally, and they had a Christian speaker, and the Muslims attacked them. 3 Christians were injured. That's what happens when you practice a non-Islamic religion in a Muslim country. Christian countries, though, the West, it's okay to practice Islam. It's okay to preach hatred. It's okay to collect welfare, as they're doing in England. They have so many Muslims there that women, 80% of the Muslim women don't work. 68% of the Muslim men don't work, and they're all on the dole. Well,
in Iraq, they would kill those Christians in Iraq if not for the fact that, first of all, there were American soldiers there. And secondly, they're worried because Iran controls most of Iraq now. And they're trying to avoid an American and Israeli attack. So they don't want bad publicity. But otherwise, they would slaughter all the Christians. They would just slaughter all of them. Like Muhammad did. That's what Muhammad did. By the way, Muhammad slaughtered all the Christians, all the Jews, all the non-Muslim infidels. He slaughtered all of them.
And the Quran says he is the bright behavior, the light that you should be following.
Mm-hmm.
In Victoria, Australia, a Muslim was riding his, I don't know what you call this, a moped. It was more than a motorized bicycle, less than a motorcycle. And he's driving it in the street like a wild maniac. So a police car comes and tries to stop him from doing it and give him a ticket. The Muslims come out and they start banging on the police car. They start kicking the police car. Meanwhile, the guy on the motorcycle is all over. He's on the sidewalks, he's on the street, he's just riding back and forth at fairly high speed. And the police car has to retreat in fear for his life. Then we talk about how stupid Muslims are. He left, the guy on the motorcycle left that area where the policeman could then follow him down the block in the opposite direction so the other Muslims couldn't stop him. But this is the terror the West is living in. And the people that cause this, that pass laws to bring these people in, that welcome them in, there's no repercussions against them. There's no consequences. Everything is just fine for them as they continue to enrich themselves.
This Muslim terrorist, Hamas beast, who Trump wants to deport from Columbia University. You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Khalil. You know, there have been hundreds of rallies on his behalf, hundreds of mass rallies on his behalf. They're raising millions of dollars in mass rallies to protect this Muslim terrorist who openly supports the annihilation of Israel, hates America, supports organizations that openly call for the destruction of America. Trump says this guy doesn't belong here. And they say, what? How dare you? I mean, you know, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable how sick.
In Poland, the prime minister said, how is it that 500 million Europeans are asking 300 million Americans to protect them from 140 million Russians? If you think about it, there's truth in what he said.
Good question.
And then he says, I will tell you more than that. There are 1 billion Muslims asking the world to protect them from 7 million Jews. And this past weekend, Ashadina showed me on her iPad a really great singer. He's a young man, I would say late 20s, 30 at the most. What a voice on him. He sounds like Dion from Dion and the Belmonts when he sings Belmont songs. He's able to not imitate other voices, but he sang The Platters' Only You, and he got all those high voice bridges down. He also sings songs from the 60s, the 70s. He sings pop hits. He sang a song from the Titanic. And his voice is tremendous, but he has to do it on YouTube because there is no call for anybody with any talent these days. The idea is we're all equal. Everybody who has no talent, they get their chance. If you have talent, you'll have to sit on the sidelines and just watch. That's why I stopped watching the Thanksgiving parade. They have these people on the floats, and coming up will be this person and that person. I don't even know who they're talking about. So when this person comes up and they're actually just moving their lips, they're lip syncing to the recording being played. I'm listening to their voices. Are they kidding me? This is what the Thanksgiving parade has deteriorated into. It's what it's what Broadway is deteriorated into. There are very few leads anymore because we're all equal. So everybody has equality.
We're all equal, but as you know,
some are more equal than others.
Yeah, that's the real truth. There's no such thing as equality. All lies. All lies. Only the evil people are promoted, and all the good people are condemned to purgatory, and all the evil people are promoted.
And I have one last story. As I like to end on a good note. If you remember the movie in 1960, John Wayne starring as Davy Crockett. Actually, if you called Davy Crockett Davy, he'd knock you down. It was David Crockett. And he wanted to show Americans how real America. He felt America starting to get weak. He wanted to show them what real Americans were like and how they sacrificed their lives to buy time for Sam Houston to raise an army. So John Wayne sent to Spain for the plan. So when you're looking at the John Wayne Alamo, you're looking at exactly what the Alamo looked like. He even used lamb's milk in building it, which is what was, or is it? No, it wasn't lamb's blood. It was the milk of sheep. So it's an exact copy. That was the only thing that was exact in the movie. Everything was wrong. Nothing was right in that movie. Jim Bowie didn't have a gun with 7 barrels on it. If he fired that, it would have knocked him off the wall. And there was a little friction between Travis and Bowie, but not much. And if you look at the beginning, when Sam Houston rides in and you see this guy, Jocko, who's later at the Alamo, he's from Tennessee too, so he says, Crockett, Davy Crockett. He calls him over and says, I'm from Tennessee. Well, if you look at Sam Houston, Jocko rode out with Sam Houston, so they're just using the same actors in different roles, in the same costumes, on the same animals. But anyway, Santa Anna didn't have an army of 7,000 because he divided his army into 3. It was about 2,800 at the max. And that includes not all fighters. You have commissary, you have surgeons, you just have support. So 2,800 attacked the Alamo. But while they're filming the Alamo, and it was a very expensive movie to make because of all the extras, they got word that banditos, even back then, banditos was stealing cattle. So John Wayne told everybody, they took their single-shot pistols and rifles, and instead of just gunpowder in there, firing blanks, they put real bullets in and they rode after the banditos. And they got the cattle back. So I just wanted to tell that story that even back then, there was trouble with banditos when this country was far more sane. And yet John Wayne started realizing how soft we were becoming. That's it.
As long as you're going to bring that up, I'm going to bring up one last point then related to that. You know that the Arabs in Judea and Samaria always are stealing the cattle, and and there's massive robberies in Israel, a lot of car robberies and a lot of other thefts. The Arabs steal cars from Jewish owners, and in Judea and Samaria they steal cattle from the Jewish settlements, but not from the Hilltop youth. They don't touch the Hilltop youth cattle because they're afraid of retaliation. So there was just another story just recently where they thought that they didn't know who it was on a ranch, and they stole about 100 heads, it wasn't cattle, it was sheep in this case, 100 sheep they stole. And they found out it was the Hilltop youth, that it was the person they stole from was Hilltop youth. 2 hours later, all of a sudden, the sheep were returned. Why wouldn't you support such great people? Why wouldn't you support such heroes? Isn't that what you want the world to be like? Isn't that the example you want to set for the world? In your heart, you know we're right. And in your guts, you know they're nuts. For JTF until next week, and for David Ben Moshe, shalom.